What if I told you that in a highly technical field, like engineering or software development, that only about 15% of your financial success is actually due to your technical knowledge?
Which is, I mean, it's a deeply counterintuitive statistic, right?
Yeah.
Because we are totally conditioned to believe that expertise is the ultimate currency.
Right. Like you could be the person who calculates the load-bearing stress of a suspension bridge flawlessly,
Exactly.
but that raw binary intelligence, it's only driving a really tiny fraction of your career trajectory.
Yeah, the research points to a completely different reality. That remaining 85% of your success, it comes down to human engineering.
Human engineering.
Yeah, it's your personality. It's your ability to navigate office politics and your capacity to lead and actually align other people.
And that 85% is exactly what we are focusing on for today's deep dive. We are plunging into this massive stack of notes, excerpts, and revisions of a manual that has, well, essentially served as the operating system for human behavior since 1937.
The one and only.
Yeah. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now look, if you are listening to this, you likely already know the title. It is one of the best-selling books in human history.
Tens of millions of copies.
Literally. But we aren't here to just recite polite self-help platitudes today. We want to look under the hood, at the behavioral architecture that makes this material so ruthlessly effective.
And to do that, we really have to establish the context of how this text was actually forged. Because this wasn't some philosophical thought experiment cooked up in a weekend.
Not at all.
It began as a highly practical textbook for a 15-year adult education laboratory in human relations.
Wow, 15 years.
Yeah, it was essentially crowdsourced behavioral psychology decades before that term even existed in academia.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the origin story of why this material was even created is wild. The inciting incident was this massive $25,000 survey conducted in Meriden, Connecticut.
Where they went all in.
They really did. Researchers interviewed every single adult in that town, running them through like 156 questions about their lives, their worries, their goals.
The data from that survey revealed this really fascinating hierarchy of human needs. Like, the number one interest for the average adult was their health.
Yeah.
Self-preservation.
Sure, staying alive makes sense.
Right. But their number two interest, sitting right behind staying alive, was people.
People.
They wanted to know how to understand their neighbors, how to get along with coworkers, and how to get people to genuinely like them.
But when the committee running that survey went looking for a practical textbook to teach this, highly demanded subject, the world's leading authorities basically admitted that no such manual existed.
Nothing. A total void.
So Carnegie stepped into it. And the depth of the research behind the source material is staggering. He and a trained researcher spent a year and a half just devouring everything.
Yeah, locking themselves in the New York Public Library.
Reading family court records to see why marriages fall apart. Reading ancient philosophy, modern psychology. I mean, they read over 100 biographies on Theodore Roosevelt alone.
Just dissecting his every interaction.
Exactly. And they didn't stop at books.
No, they went straight to the source.
Yeah.
They secured personal interviews with the giants of the era. They sat down with Thomas Edison, Marconi, Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Trying to find the hidden variables.
Right, the recurring variables in human interaction.
Yeah.
But they didn't just publish a theory when they found one. They took it to their evening classes, these classes filled with salespeople and executives, and said, go test this rule in your office tomorrow and report back next week.
It's like crowdsourcing a behavioral psychology masterclass. So this material was forged in a laboratory of real adult experiences. And because of that, the author didn't just want people to passively read it.
Oh, definitely not.
He designed strict rules for how to absorb it. He includes these 9 suggestions for mastering the content. And I love the gamification aspect of this. He literally suggests paying your spouse or a friend a dime or $1 every time they catch you violating one of the principles.
Because it requires active, uncomfortable learning. What's fascinating here is the example of the Wall Street banker.
Oh, the Saturday night guy.
Yeah, this highly successful financier. He refused to make social plans on Saturday nights. Instead, he would open his engagement book and spend the entire evening auditing himself.
Just going through his week.
Every meeting, every negotiation, analyzing his blunders, his mistakes, his triumphs, asking, where did I let my ego take over?
I mean, I have to push back on that because that sounds exhausting.
It is a heavy lift, yeah.
Like, who wants to ruin their Saturday night thinking about everything they did wrong all week? That sounds like a recipe for a panic attack.
Well, sure, it's intense. But The goal isn't just to acquire information, right? It's to form a completely new way of life.
Yeah.
And our default human reflexes are incredibly stubborn.
That's fair.
If you don't implement a system of deliberate reflection, you just default to your easiest habits.
Mm.
And the hardest habit to break, the one that a Saturday Night Audit targets, is our natural reflex to blame others.
Which brings us to the first, and honestly perhaps the most difficult fundamental technique. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
It is so hard to do.
It is. And the source text shares these wild examples to prove how deep our self-justifying reflex goes. Take 2 Gun Crowley.
The cop killer.
Yeah, notorious murderer in New York. He gets in this massive shootout with 150 police officers. And while he's pinned down, actively returning fire, bleeding, he writes a letter saying, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm."
Pure delusion.
Right. And Al Capone, the most notorious mobster in Chicago, he had the exact same mindset. He publicly complained that he spent his best years helping people have a good time, and all he got was abuse.
He viewed himself as a misunderstood public benefactor.
Exactly. Even notorious murderers don't blame themselves. So, if a mobster ordering hits doesn't think he's wrong, what are the odds that your coworker who missed a deadline is going to respond well to your harsh criticism?
Statistically, 0. Because criticism puts people immediately on the defensive and wounds their pride. And psychologically, B.F. Skinner proved this.
The behavioral psychologist.
Right. He proved that animals, and later studies confirmed this in humans, they learn far better and retain information longer through rewards for good behavior rather than punishment for bad behavior.
Which perfectly sets up the incredible story of Bob Hoover.
Oh, this is one of my favorites from the text.
It's so intense. So Bob Hoover is a legendary test pilot. He's flying a propeller plane back to Los Angeles, 2 passengers on board. Suddenly, high in the air, both engines completely fail.
Terrifying.
Miraculously, he manages to land this plummeting plane. It's badly damaged, but they survive. And when he inspects the fuel tanks, he realizes his mechanic had accidentally put jet fuel in his propeller plane.
Almost causing a fatal crash.
Right. So he walks over to the mechanic, who is just in tears, sick over what he did, waiting to be fired or screamed at. But instead of unleashing this furious critique, Hoover just puts his arm around him and says, "To show you I'm sure that you'll never do this again, I want you to service my plane tomorrow."
It's amazing.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate. If someone makes a near-fatal mistake, isn't a harsh critique absolutely necessary for safety? Like, how does a hug fix a ruined airplane?
Well, the thing is, the mechanic already knew he had failed in agonizing detail. The plane was already ruined. Criticism wouldn't fix the plane. It would only breed resentment and destroy his confidence.
So it's about the future behavior.
Exactly. By showing trust instead of anger, Hoover permanently changed that mechanic's behavior. Even Abraham Lincoln had to learn this the hard way.
Oh, right, the duel.
Yeah, he almost fought a broadsword duel over a critical, mocking letter he wrote. It changed him so much that later, during the Civil War, when General Meade disobeyed orders and let Robert E. Lee escape after Gettysburg,
Which prolonged the war.
literally added years to the war. Lincoln was furious. He wrote Meade a brutal letter of reprimand. But, and this is the key, he left it unsent. It was found in his papers after he died. He realized that criticism would just alienate Meade when the Union needed him.
So if we strip away the weapon of criticism, if we throw away the stick, it leaves a behavioral vacuum. To motivate people, we have to replace it with a carrot.
And that carrot happens to be the deepest craving of the human heart.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because John Dewey calls this the desire to be important, and Freud called it the desire to be great.
It's a singular hunger.
Yes.
It's what drives civilization. I mean, it made Charles Dickens write novels. It made Rockefeller amass millions.
But it also drives people insane, literally.
It does. The text shares this tragic but profound story of a psychiatrist who had a patient whose real life was just bleak. No social standing, loveless marriage. Reality denied her any feeling of importance.
So her brain just manufactured it.
Exactly. She retreated into a fantasy where she was British royalty, imagining she was giving birth to a new baby every night. But the profound part is, the psychiatrist said that even if he could cure her, he wouldn't.
Because she was finally finding the feeling of importance in her fantasy world that reality denied her.
Right. Why drag her back to a reality where she's starving?
It's powerful. And you see the positive side of that in the Stevie Wonder story from the sources. He was a blind boy in a classroom, and his teacher asked him to use his unique gift of hearing to find a mouse that was loose in the room.
It's the first time his hearing was appreciated.
The very first time. And he credited that moment with changing the entire trajectory of his life.
Just from feeling uniquely valued.
But isn't there a danger here? Like, if flattery is like a cheap sugar rush, true appreciation is more like a balanced nutritional meal, right? How do we avoid just being manipulative?
I agree completely with that analogy. Flattery comes from the teeth out. It's selfish. Appreciation comes from the heart out. It takes actual work to find something you genuinely value in someone else.
Yeah.
The author actually quotes King George V, who said, "Teach me neither to proffer nor receive cheap praise."
Cheap praise, that's good. Once you understand that every person you meet is starving for a feeling of importance, you basically unlock the secret to getting people to eagerly cooperate with you.
Which brings us to principle 3. Arouse in the other person an eager want.
The fishing analogy.
Yes, it's so simple, but we ignore it. Like, you might love strawberries and cream, but fish prefer worms. So why do we constantly bait our hooks with what we want when we're dealing with people?
It's so true. Every argument I have is usually me saying what I want.
Right. It's all about the psychology of aligning desires. The source text gives that brilliant example of Andrew Carnegie and the $5 trick.
Oh, with his nephews at Yale.
Exactly. They were ignoring all letters from their family. So Carnegie bets $100 he can get them to reply immediately. He writes a chatty letter, and at the end mentions he's enclosing $5 for each of them.
But he deliberately leaves the money out of the envelope.
Yes. So the boys get the letter, see there's no money, and suddenly they are highly motivated to write back saying, "Dear uncle, you forgot the cash." He aroused an eager want.
He baited the hook with worms. And the hotel ballroom story is an even higher stakes version of this. The author used to rent a New York hotel ballroom for his lectures, and out of nowhere, he gets hit with a 300% rent hike.
Right before his season starts.
Yes, tickets are already printed. Now, normally someone would storm in, slam the tickets on the desk, and complain about their own printed tickets and their own ruined budget.
But the hotel manager doesn't care about the author's problems.
Exactly. So instead, the author draws a line down a piece of paper. He lists the advantages and disadvantages for the hotel manager,
focusing entirely on the other guy's ledger.
He says, look, the advantage is you free up the room for conventions that pay more. The disadvantage is I can't pay this, so you lose my rent entirely, and you lose the free advertising of having cultured crowds come to your hotel every night.
And it worked. The rent increase was dropped from 300% to just 50%. But, this raises an important question. Is this methodology just a form of selfish manipulation?
Yeah, exactly. Because it feels a bit sneaky, like the dad in the text who got his kid to eat spinach just so the boy could grow big and beat up the local bully, or the parents who got their bedwetting son to stop by buying him his own big boy bed. It feels like pulling levers behind a curtain.
It is a fine line, but the ethical boundary established in the sources is actually very clear. True influence requires a win-win scenario.
Okay.
If it only benefits you while harming the other person, that's manipulation. But in the hotel negotiation, both sides won. The hotel kept a profitable client and their advertising, and the author kept his venue. The kid got a big boy bed, the parents got dry sheets.
So it's about genuine alignment, not trickery. But to genuinely figure out what the other person wants, to find out what their worm is, you have to do something that most people are just too selfish to do.
You have to actually care about them.
Which brings up my favorite question for you, the listener. Who is the greatest winner of friends in the world?
Such a great concept.
Right. You might have one in your house right now. It's a dog. They don't have to lay eggs or give milk to earn their keep. They make a living just by giving love.
Yeah.
They are genuinely excited to see you.
Which is incredibly unnatural for humans. The text points to a New York telephone company study to show just how self-obsessed we really are. They analyzed 500 phone calls to see what word was used the most.
Let me guess.
Yep. The word it was used 3,900 times in 500 calls. I want, I need, I did.
Yeah.
We are naturally obsessed with ourselves.
But when you break that pattern, it's magic. Like the famous magician Howard Thurston. He didn't look at the crowd and call them suckers like other magicians did. He would stand behind the curtain before every show and repeatedly say to himself, I love my audience.
He deliberately shifted his focus to them.
So what does this all mean? Like, how do you, listening to this, actually apply this tomorrow morning?
You do it by noticing the details. Like Theodore Roosevelt. He took the time to learn the names of all the White House servants. He even talked to a kitchen maid about a bob-white bird outside her window because she had never seen one.
Or the salesman in the text who kept a massive drugstore account.
Right, because he was the only vendor who bothered to say hello to the soda clerk.
The clerk actually advocated for him to the owner. It all boils down to principle 1 of part 2. Become genuinely interested in other people.
It sounds so simple, but it is incredibly difficult to practice consistently.
It really is, and that's the core philosophy of this deep dive.
Yeah.
This material isn't just some superficial toolkit for manipulation. You can't just memorize a script. It requires a fundamental shift in character.
Absolutely.
It's about giving honest appreciation, biting your tongue instead of criticizing, figuring out what the other person actually wants, and taking a genuine interest in their lives.
Thomas Carlyle summed it up perfectly in the text. He said, "A great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little men." It's all about self-control and empathy.
I love that. So here is a final thought for you to mull over. Think about the last frustrating argument you had at work or at home. If you had paused in that moment and asked yourself, what does this person actually want, and how are they trying to feel important right now? How would that entire conversation have changed?
It changes the whole dynamic.
Totally. I challenge you to play the dime penalty game with yourself today. Pay up, at least mentally, every time you use the word I instead of focusing on the other person. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.